All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and for those in attendance, if you could please place your phones on silent mode. I have the following amendments to the agenda. The added presentation 5 alpha, which is the presentation regarding the Agricultural Advisory Board regarding the farmer survey. The second item is the staff report, CAO 2036, concerns regarding out-of-health unit facility rentals. And a closed session item will be added, 14 Bravo and Charlie, additional information respecting report CAO 20-30, which is to be distributed, and county solicitor memo regarding the restrictions on users of municipal facilities. Are there any further additions? Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to pull, I believe, in our newly revised agenda that's been renumbered, bylaw item 9A. I could be in error there, could be 10A, but it's under bylaws, it's bylaw A, for a brief discussion, please.
Which is the emergency management program?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And are there any items of, given the number of communications that...
Requested that communication 5A and 5C be pulled.
5A and C. Okay, any further? In that case, Councillor Michelli, I'm just going to switch this around. I'll have you as the mover of that motion. Councillor Rabbit seconding. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, seeing none, no consent items today. And so for 5 alpha will be the presentation from the Agricultural Advisory Board. And Trish, I believe that's you. You're going to do the presentation, not Dusty? We can't hear you yet, so maybe.
Yes, I am.
Okay, there you are. All right, so thanks for joining us. And just as a reminder, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Sure. So thank you, everyone. The AB is coming here today looking for Council's acknowledgement of the report that was created from the recent farmer survey. We're looking for endorsement of our suggestions in terms of feedback to government. So a few stats and information out of the survey. We had excellent turnout. We had 92 farmers that responded. They own 57% of the bunkhouses and employ 64% of the temporary foreign workers in a normal year. In terms of impact this last year, we had 1,090 less workers versus 2019, so down 21%, and that correlated somewhat with the decrease in sales, which dropped 23% on average. 92% of the farmers had less workers because of the isolation rules, and 91% of those indicated that they wouldn't have had a decrease if there were some form of government-run program for the isolation. It wasn't just the number of workers that was the issue, it was also the timing of which those workers arrived. Financial results were quite varied depending on crop, market supply, and labor availability. In terms of the 2021 growing season, there will be a new rule that the beds need to be 2 meters apart. That's a federal rule. Our health units recognize that coupled with the loss of bunk beds would be unworkable. So thankfully they're allowing use of bunk beds for this year, provided they're not told otherwise. Regardless, there will be a significant impact this year. So over 40% of farmers will lose 25% of their labor capacity. And if bunk beds were disallowed, 54% of farmers would lose 50% of their capacity. There was also some unintended consequence that was highlighted in the survey. So for those that preferred not to use bunk beds, they indicated that the 2 meter distance would cause them to have to use bunk beds or to rebuild. So there were a couple solutions on that that I thought I would highlight. So the one talked about if they could do single beds, but not quite 2 meters apart, but their workers sleep with their heads greater than 2 meters apart. So they were talking about a farmhouse with many rooms, and if they could arrange the beds in an L pattern, the foot of the beds would be 4 feet apart, but the heads would be 8 to 12 feet apart. Another said they talked to their workers and they thought about temporary walls that could be easily washed and disinfected. There would be less than 2 meters space, but they would have added privacy and protection. The question is what would be approved in terms of a temporary wall. For those that are currently using bunk beds, a lot of them will be forced to build new structures. The issues with that are that there's new federal requirements that will be coming out, and we don't yet know what those are. So they're unsure what to build. And others have just indicated that they're going to be reducing their crop sizes to meet the housing resources that they have. So in terms of the federal proposed changes, you've got them all in the report there. There will be a significant and tremendous impact to farmers in the rural community. Nearly half of the workers of the farmers will lose 50% or more of their labor capacity. And even with renovation, 30% said they would lose 50% or more. So a new building is inevitable. It'll be a monumental project for our county. We estimate an investment of $65 million. So to put that in perspective, that's about 50% of the total construction in the county last year, and nearly 3.5 times what was done in agriculture. The average cost would be $19,000 a worker, and per farm, somewhere between $5,000 and $5 million, obviously depending on farm size, but the average cost would be $410,000 per farm. Logistically, it's going to be very difficult to complete that in a short time period. So when asked for possible government actions to help, farmers overwhelmingly indicated a government-run isolation program, funding to adapt, and a 5-year time frame to do so. Other suggestions: using new tools and testing and vaccinations, aligning documentation and inspections across all groups requiring them, building department efficiencies and interpretation, regulation bylaw changes at the municipal level to increase options, and just general support for things like digital adoption and worker safety. Further feedback, a lot of support for 5 or 6 workers per building unit, as long as there's some cost support. There was frustration with the story being told in the media. Some comments that we should be stop listening to the 1% of workers, but need to start talking to the other 99%, allowing common sense that they care about their workers and they want those making the decisions to listen to them and their ideas, and to not just look at the few examples being exploited in the media. There were also a few comments about the efficiency and helpfulness at the county level. So communication, timely answers, and clear explanation, helpfulness to move things along versus roadblocks, and just the time to get permits. So there was a couple comments on that: 8 months for a small barn permit last year and 2 years to get septic approved. One of our farm work organizations did a survey with their workers. I included those. The vast majority were happy. Preferred single beds, rooms of 4 to 6 people, improved privacy, 66% were willing to pay. The largest concern is poor internet options. So in terms of what we're asking for, federal intake, we're looking for a multi-year plan in the 4 to 5 year range that considers grandfathering and or stage adjustments based upon factors such as accommodation, size, building age, and seasonality. Looking at recommending 2 streams, one congregate style housing and another household style housing, with household being 5 to 6 workers. So with the household having a different risk profile, looking at reducing the 2 meter bed spacing when farmers use other mechanisms such as bed positioning, footboard to footboard. Things like enclosed washrooms wouldn't need privacy barriers. Congregate, align the ratios for plumbing and whatnot to the same 5 to 6 workers, allowing centralized laundry facilities for larger farms. Asking the workers directly for feedback. The government could develop a survey and that could be shared with the workers so they could get input directly. So just indicated that they want a comfortable environment, but I think we need to recognize that what's comfortable Canadian might be different for those coming from other cultures and countries. So for instance, many of them would prefer open windows and ceiling fans to air conditioning. So farmers do need a choice there so that they can best match what matches their workers' wishes. There were similar comments with respect to desks and landlines and dryer ratios. Things like seasonal housing not requiring heat, a better approach to the statement being accessible to the public. There was concerns on comfort, security, safety, and obviously freedom for the workers to leave, but for visits to be offsite or a designated area. Sharing in the costs of amenities or increased living costs due to improved standards. Also making the government aware of the issues at other levels of government. So the MOE septic compliance would be one item. The lack of municipal resources to handle building at this level. So we're asking for funding for municipalities to hire dedicated staff to manage a project. Lack of specialized professionals and trades to handle this level of building. Widely poor internet and phone service infrastructure. The biggest impediment is the investment cost. Affordability is an issue. There is a lack of capacity to borrow and repay loans at the required level. Farming margins are already very thin. Most farmers don't set pricing, and they compete globally with countries that don't pay and treat their labor at the same level that we do. So where businesses in other areas can adjust their price upwards, primary production has a long history of increasing costs with prices falling short. Our consolidated grocery industry is a big part of the problem. They have a lot of power and they compete on price. And although food prices are increasing, it's just not being passed down appropriately to the farmer. So also highlighted a couple things at the end in terms of time-sensitive pieces. Number one being that we need to know what those final requirements are now so farmers can start building appropriately. And a strong suggestion that the government run an isolation program, including proper monitoring and testing done by trained professionals. We don't have enough resources here at the health unit to do that. Testing upon arrival and at the end of quarantine so that workers are cleared before entering our communities and farms. Temporary foreign workers be considered top and high priority when administering vaccines, and with vaccines, relaxing some of the requirements post-vaccination. So that's kind of a bit of a summary. I'd just like to ask if anyone has any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Trish. Questions from council?
You're welcome.
Councilor Rabbits.
Thank you, and through you, thank you, Trish, for your presentation this afternoon. I'm in the report, and I'm actually looking at Appendix B. It's the beginning of the information that was presented from farms. And for council's benefit and the viewing public, we have some hard numbers, some quantitative data. 2019 harvest season saw 4,320 arrivals, several transfers totaling over 5,088 farm workers or laborers in the fields there. In 2020, it's the next page, I believe it's 23 of 35 of the report. 2020, we see a significant decrease, arrivals totaling 3,461, several transfers, not too much changed there comparatively, but the sum total, 3,998, close to 4,000 workers. Sounds like we're down about 1,000 workers in those fields. For our benefit, Trish, could you explain a little bit about who farms are, what they do, the reliability of the information that we have before us here, and is there any insight or inclination as to what the 2021 season could be? To me, I see a year over year, but my concern is that this could be potentially a trend and we could even see worse numbers in 2021.
Yeah, so Farms is the program. It's a not-for-profit, and basically they manage the seasonal agricultural worker program. It's been in existence for over 50 years. I'm not sure of the exact dates, but they arrange all the visas, ensuring they're working with the government to ensure that there is a lack of local labor. They're arranging all the flights. They are giving approvals to all the farmers and arranging everyone to come in. So they managed the whole thing. I would think the information's pretty accurate. I mean, this came directly from their computer system. I asked for it. In terms of 2021, I personally have some major concerns, and so do a lot of others. I guess the farmers this year, obviously everybody was caught by surprise and everyone tried to do the best that they could. The one thing that they did have a benefit of this past year was that students were out of school, and a lot of people were out of work. So I did hear that they did have some successes with some students and also with some tradespeople that were out of work. That's not to say that trying to replace with local labor worked very well. There were a lot of issues with people not showing up, or showing up for a very short time, not being able to get people indicating they would work but only for cash. Farmers had a lot of trouble finding local labor. So to answer your question, yeah, I think this could be worse next year. Obviously we can plan better, but we still have the isolation issue if some level of government won't run it. And we also have a lack of capacity of housing if people can't make very quick changes.
Thank you for that, and through you. My next question is regarding Appendix E, and we're looking at the worker pod scalable to farm needs. Now, we've got a 5-worker pod, we have a 4. My question, and they both look well designed to me, is my initial thoughts, but the reality of doing business in Norfolk County is you're limited to 3 persons per bunkhouse, or, and I'll have to check with our staff, per pod potentially. Why wasn't 3 looked at, and is that simply not scalable to the design that's included in the Appendix E, page 27 to 35 of our report?
So this is one particular farmer that designed this, and they had shared it with me and were wondering about feedback. Their thought is if we could get people more on the same page, that we could go back with some solutions. So that's why this idea was floated. I would assume they went with 5, just because it's probably a pretty reasonable amount to share a kitchen and bathrooms. A lot of households are that size, and obviously they're trying to make it as efficient and economical as possible. In terms of the 3 persons, that is just during the isolation period, not after the isolation period. So if they're going to use these, obviously for the first 3 weeks, 2 weeks, they would only be able to have 3 individuals in here.
Understood. So the schematics that we see are for not that initial period. That concern has not been addressed through that appendix. Has well, I'm going to let that go. You did answer that question directly, and I appreciate you clarifying. I've heard through your presentation that there's an acknowledgement there that the temporary foreign worker program is a federal mandate, and that's the party that we need to work with to improve that process. Yes. We have acknowledgement that health is purview of the province, and we need to work with them too. We have limited resources in our health unit in our district. We have challenges that are unique to Norfolk County. I did hear in your deputation that there were a few asks. If you're able to summarize those as maybe your top 3 that are realistic, achievable, measurable, what are those asks that you're coming to council really looking for today?
Just for your support, endorsement on what we're asking for the federal government. So that was the multi-year plan, 4 to 5 year range with grandfathering or staged adjustments. So which factors on size, building age, seasonality. So the idea is that this is a huge project. There's no way this can be done overnight, and people need time to adjust. Farmers need to figure out what they're capable of doing, decide what the best way of doing that is, look at automation, look at what markets they want to be in. Obviously, some are more labor intensive than others, and they need to make decisions based upon what stage they're at financially. So that would allow that to happen. The other big part is the two streams. It became obvious that if we could have two different streams, one being household type, because obviously the risk profile is less, and we've heard a lot about the congregate housing being of a higher risk profile, and that's completely understandable. But we have 46% of our farmers have 6 workers or less in their bunkhouses. So if we could have a household stream where maybe some of these things aren't as stringent because the risk profile is less and more like a home and a regular household, then that would be a little bit more workable. The other thing is some of the things just don't fit into an existing home that's there already. So the one example on the bunk beds, or sorry, the beds in an L pattern, I mean, the rooms are already there, and if they're 10-foot rooms or whatever, they might not be able to have that amount of space in between. And the other big item is asking the workers, because there are some things in here, and farmers were questioning why that would be in there. So the one example I gave was the air conditioning, and a lot of people mentioned desks, because knowing their workers, a lot of them know that their workers wouldn't want the air conditioning. It's the first thing they turn off when they get in the vehicle. For instance, and desks, a lot of them were puzzled by that as well. So I think we need to make sure that we're putting in what the workers truly want. And then the accessibility to the public as well was questionable, because they are working farms. So they do need to think about safety, and they do need to think about the fact that you would have several roommates here, and not all of them may be happy with having a guest in their home that they didn't have any say in.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rabbits. Any further questions? I guess Tricia, I didn't realize that, were you involved in the drafting of the motion, Councillor Columbus, that you're putting forward?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it was ran by the Board of Directors.
I would have been helpful to see it in advance of the meeting, because I just would have made a couple of suggestions, recommendations. To me, we'll move on, but if I could reserve my right just to come back to Trish and ask her a question then about the motion once you present it. So first, if we can have a motion to receive his information. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Columbus, did you want me to read that out, or did you have it in front of you?
Yes, the meeting of the Agri Advisory Board took place actually Friday morning, and the mayor and I were in conversation with that meeting. And because we're at a deadline date of December 21st to submit this request to the Government of Canada with respect to the foreign worker program, we have to have this in by that deadline date. Hence, it came to this stage where we had the presentation from Trish here, who's done an excellent job of putting that forward. So I have a motion that I prepared in consultation with the executive of the Ag Advisory Board, and I believe it's seconded by Councillor Michele.
So you want me to read it out then? Okay.
Please.
All right, so whereas the Government of Canada is seeking feedback on proposed federal accommodations for the temporary foreign worker program, including potential impacts and considerations for transitioning to new requirements. Whereas the temporary foreign worker program is a vital requirement in the production of labor-intensive crops, essential food security for Canadians and Norfolk County's economy. Whereas the Norfolk County Agricultural Advisory Board has surveyed farmers who utilize the temporary foreign worker program during the 2020 production season, accumulating findings and concerns with respect to housing accommodation and COVID-19 isolation of temporary foreign workers. Whereas the proposed mandatory requirements for employer-provided accommodations would alter current accommodations and consequently have significant impact on farmers who rely on the temporary foreign worker program. Whereas based on grower-producer survey feedback, the Agricultural Advisory Board has provided findings and concerns which warrant consideration by the Government of Canada prior to initiating mandatory temporary foreign worker program requirements. requirements. Now therefore be it resolved that Norfolk County Council endorse the survey findings, concerns, and requests for consideration as presented by the Agricultural Advisory Board, and that the stakeholder consultation feedback letter plus the Norfolk County Farmer Survey November 2020 submitted by the Agricultural Advisory Board Chair be forwarded to the Government of Canada, the Province of Ontario, the various farm associated organizations, and grower survey participants. So my only comments with it would just be, to myself, again, I would have left, I think it would be better with the federal government when you're trying to pitch these changes. I mean, you are still considering the workers. It's not just about the fact that it's the sentence, whereas the proposed mandatory requirements for employer-provided accommodations would alter current accommodations and consequently have significant impacts on farmers who rely on temporary foreign worker program. At the end of the day, they're advancing these regulations because they're trying to protect the safety of the migrant workers. I understand where you're coming from, but myself, if I was the federal government and reading this, it doesn't sound like that's bridging the two together. Do you know what I mean? You're taking the wrong tone to try to pitch your story, which is that, hey, we can do this in a better way that both seeks to protect the workers and ensures that we have the labor supply that we need. My only suggestion would be to remove that line and possibly the sentence about Norfolk County's economy. Again, the focus on this is the fact that it is a program that is providing food security.
Well, if you think, Madam Mayor, that's more acceptable to the federal government to make things happen, to improve everything with respect to this program, I don't mind having you make that change. I don't know, well, you can ask Trish what she feels about it, but if you think that's what will carry it to move this forward, I don't see a problem with it.
I just think it takes away from it, as opposed to, communicating that it takes away from the concern being about protecting the workers, and we're back to, economical considerations again, which is, I don't think, how you want to pitch this. Trish, did you have comments?
No, I would agree with that. I think that's a very good point, that we want to show that we are looking at everything and it's not just about economics. And I do think the full report does speak to about the workers as well and making sure that they're taken care of. And where we did suggest changes, it's because of different risk profiles. So I'm fine with that.
The only other suggestion would be to modify it such that, because the one thing you've repeated a couple times, and which I've been saying for a long time now, is that you guys can't make the changes that quickly. So to me, it's whereas more that the proposed mandatory requirements, it's highlighting the fact that making these changes so quickly would be impossible at this point. If you wanted something added in there to that effect, we could do that. Councillor Van Passen, I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. When you read it out, I sort of had that same concern, but you could sort of add that it does affect the farmers themselves, but also that it affects the workers themselves too, like adding things that some bureaucrat in the big city wants, and it's not really what the workers want, is not helpful to the workers. So, and I think they've commented on the difference between fans and air conditioning as an example, right? And I also wonder whether we could add that also direct the mayor to write sort of a covering letter to go with all that information that we want to send, just to sort of lay out, it's, when you just send a resolution from council, that's one thing, but if you have a cover letter that sort of explains it a little bit more detail on some of the highlights, I think that might be helpful as well, and it's a bit more personal to the feds. If the mover and seconder would be
Well,
happy
then
with
let's remove that sentence. Let's end or that one paragraph, Norfolk County's economy, strike that from there, and then we'll add something else in the cover letter to accompany it. Anything further?
Could we ask the seconder if he's in support of that, Jane?
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think that, once it's sort of read again, and I realize there's some urgency in the timing of this item, but I do agree with the mayor's point that perhaps we need to emphasize this item this is about worker safety, perhaps more than the actual local economy. So I'm quite happy to accept that suggestion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Go ahead, Councilor.
Madam Mayor, I just wonder too, Trish here has given us an excellent presentation. I wonder if a video of the presentation could be forwarded on to the Government of Canada, because it kind of summarizes everything, and, you know, a lot of times you read these heavy documents, 15 to 30 pages, and that kind of highlighted everything along with the paperwork.
Well, Tricia, you're going to be sending the package to them anyway, right? With the letter from Dusty?
Yeah, so the letter that was written from Dusty, I do think that highlights a lot of it. I can have a look at it again and make sure it's kind of covered all the parts that were in the presentation. The letter from Dusty is just under 2 pages.
Perfect.
And I also wrote an executive survey or executive summary that has a lot of the highlights and important parts in as well.
Well, I think we can leave that to you. I mean, if you decide, it's just, we are endorsing, by this motion, your findings, concerns, and requests. So however you choose to present that to the federal government, whether that's in video format or letter format or however, we'll leave that to you to decide.
Okay. And thank you very much for fitting this in today. I know it's last minute and you have a packed agenda, but obviously it's pretty pressing and we've been trying to get to this stage as quickly as possible.
Okay, thanks. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thanks for joining us. Moving on, I guess we're now, communications, Councillor Van Passen. The first one you have pulled from Bryden's Den.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 7, we have a request from Bryden's Den. They had a complaint this spring or this summer. Found out there might be a little technical detail. They might need a zoning bylaw amendment to carry on doing what they've been doing for all these years down there. And they are requesting that council waive the fee, which is $3,727. And I know it's not normal council practice to waive those fees. The only thing that council has done in the past would be to provide a grant for the equivalent amount. They are stuck in the position if they spent the money on the zoning application, they will have no money left to look after the little critters of the world. So over the weekend, I made a couple of phone calls. I have dropped off a check from one member of the community, cut a check for that amount of $3,727, and we are busy passing the hat through around the community of Port Ryerson to help defray that cost. So this request is moot at this point. It's been looked after by Small Town Ontario in the normal way, and everybody's kicking in a little bit, and the job's getting done. So we no longer need to deal with this. So thank you very much.
That is fantastic news. Councillor Rabbits, I see that you have a motion wanting to apply the grant for $3,727. Are you comfortable with Councillor Van Passen's?
I am, and I would happily withdraw that. And glad to hear that communities come out in support of Bryden's Den. So thank you.
Well, your mic's up. Your mic's off.
Oh, we're still passing the hat around, so anybody who's interested in throwing some money in the pot, be more than happy to get it back to the people who fronted it. So, thanks.
Well, thank you very much for taking that on and for engaging the community. And once again, I think that's the way how we need to start looking at things and not just always putting these items automatically on the levy. There's so many worthwhile causes. And is there somebody to contact? Can they contact yourself if they wish to donate? Mike.
They can contact me, yes, and I'll make arrangements because it's a community thing. Nobody wants to take credit for it. It's just getting done. So.
Okay, so anybody that wishes to donate to Bryden's Den can contact Councillor Van Passen. So in that case, we'll just be receiving that item as information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. Next one that has been pulled was item C. Councillor Van Passen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we have a letter from Gertrude Smith and the Victoria Women's Institute regarding the Old Town Hall, and we did receive some interest in that facility on our call for submissions, but I was unaware that there is a 999-year lease with 895 years left on it, and I wonder whether that affects that call for submission process.
Through the chair of the council, we're going to review that situation. We knew there was a lease. We didn't think it was on that building, so we'll get back to council on that matter.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further? All right, if I could have a mover and a seconder to move all of the items of communication as information. Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, moving on to the approval of minutes. Okay, the first item is the council minutes of November 17th. So something's not lining up here. Okay, so first are the council minutes from November 17th to 2020. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, they'll be declared as adopted. Moving on to the special council minutes, November 27th, 2020. We have two sets of council minutes on page 25 and 39. Are there any errors or omissions on those? Okay, seeing none, those two will be declared adopted and signed by myself and the clerk. Council and committee minutes, December 8th, 2020. No items were pulled for discussion, so unless there are any errors or omissions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Rabbits, that the minutes be approved. All those in favor? That's carried. Next are the budget committee minutes, page 57. Nothing has been pulled from them for discussion, so could I have a motion to approve? Actually, I do have one. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? It's carried. Budget committee minutes, December 8th, 2020, on page 61, the most recent budget minutes. Nothing has been pulled for discussion. Motion moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. Public hearing committee minutes, December 1st, 2020, that's on page 65. Nothing has been pulled from them. Motion moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Michelli, that the minutes be approved. All those in favor? That's carried. Delhi BIA minutes, March 11th. They've sent along some previous minutes. If I could have a motion, actually, a motion's been moved by Councillor Michelli and seconded by Councillor Rabbits that they be received as information. All those in favor? That's carried. Next, the Agricultural Advisory Board minutes, November 23rd, 2020. The Ag Advisory Board sent along their November minutes. Motion moved by Councillor Rabbits. I'm going to need a seconder to receive as information. Councillor Van Passen, seconding. All those, Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to highlight another issue that's before the Agricultural Advisory Board, and it's the carbon tax issue, whereby the farming community that uses a great deal of fuel energy for conditioning crops like ginseng, grain, tobacco, whatever, there's this carbon tax that showed up on their utility bills this past season, and in some cases it's increased the producers' costs 26%, and it's going to be increased even more so over the next 2 to 4 years. So that is an issue that they are looking into at this time, the Ag Advisory Board is.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Again, that the minutes be received as information. All those in favor? That's carried. The November 23rd, 2020 Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes be received as information. That was moved by Councillor Martin. I need a seconder on that. Councillor Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Mover and a seconder that the November 26, 2020 Telecommunications Advisory Committee minutes be received as information. Mover. Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. And then moving on to staff reports. First is Staff Report Corporate Services 20-58, the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, project selection.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, before you have a report starting on page 85 of the package. There is a new program that Norfolk County has, that the federal government has instituted. Norfolk County has been informed that they could receive up to $654,000 for eligible projects. As part of the project, or as part of the application process, there's a requirement that council approves the projects going forward so that the federal government understands that there's a commitment by the municipality to move forward. There's a number of restrictions on the type of projects that can be provided for. The key restrictions are all projects must be started prior to September 30th, 2021, and they all must be completed by December 31st, 2021. So we needed projects that we were either in stream or that we knew we could get done fairly quickly to be eligible for the money. Staff also looked at the number of projects and tried to identify the ones that we thought best suited the program so that we could be most successful with this program. We've identified a number of projects. They're outlined on page 88 or page 4 of 6 of the report. One of the key items that's in there is improving building operating systems for COVID and other diseases. We have a couple of projects that line up with that, two with Norview. So that would take $453,000 of the submissions. The other one that they're looking for is active transportation items. So this is normally like bike lanes and all that. We don't have any of those projects scheduled for it, but we do have some very good pedestrian crossovers and some trail signage that's there. So that would be for another $201,000 for a total of $654,000, which maxes out what we can obtain from the government. So the report here is for the council to endorse these projects going forward in the applications, and then we can move this through the process. If there's any questions, be happy to take them.
Councillor Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Jason. Jason, is that basically the reason why some of the other projects, perhaps in the disaster mitigation and adaptation category, were not included, because this was the best sort of combination of projects that would get us to $654,000?
Through the chair, that is correct. We needed projects that could be easily procured and actually executed by December 31st. So we went through different ranking criteria to see which ones we could pull off under the timelines, and these were the ones that came up that we thought best met the scoring requirements of the program.
Thank you.
Any further questions from council members? Okay, if I could have a mover then and seconder for the staff recommendation. Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Next item is staff report PD 20-68. This is an application that has been received to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit the construction of a new office building and 9 residential units within 2 street townhouse blocks. 1694467 Ontario Incorporated and OBB Properties, Inc. and agent Mary Elder have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 55 First Avenue and 600 Norfolk Street in Simcoe. And who from planning is presenting?
Through you, Madam Chair, that'll.
Welcome, go ahead.
Thank you. I have prepared the following documentation report for you. Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys. Well, I can hear an echo.
It is a little bit. You're cutting in and out. Try again.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I prepared the recommendation report before you. The report went for a public information, the public hearing on October 6th. As you said, the application is to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. This property actually went through a consent process and was conditionally approved to split the subject lands into 2 parcels. So the reason for this official plan and zoning application is to meet the conditions of the consent application. So for the official plan amendment, it's to change the designation on the property from commercial to urban residential for the northwest portion, and to address the listed zoning deficiencies that resulted from the severance. You can find the list of zoning deficiencies in the agenda package on pages 92 and 93. For this application, there were no public comments that were received. All technical issues have been addressed. Staff have been working closely with the agent to address the next steps in the process for this development, and staff are recommending approval of this official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application. Thank you.
Any questions from council to staff? All right, if I could have a mover for the staff recommendation that the application affecting the lands described as part lots 2, 4, 6, is that the right one? Okay, it is. So that the application 1694467 Ontario Inc. and OBB Properties affecting the lands described as part lots 2, 4, 6 to 7, 9 to 13, block 6, plan 182, part lots 3 to 4, 6 and 13, lot 5, block 6, plan 182, urban area of Simcoe, Norfolk County, to amend the Norfolk County official plan and the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014, file number OPNPL 2019394 and ZNPL 2019395 be approved for the reasons set out in report number PD 20-68, and that no public input has been received for this application, therefore will not be considered as part of this decision. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Michelli. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. The next report before us is staff report PD 20-69. This is an application that's been received to amend the zoning bylaw 1Z 2014 to change the zoning on the property from agricultural A to hamlet residential, with special provisions permitting a 20-meter wide road frontage on the Turkey Point Road to bring the subject lands into conformity with the official plan. Peter Bosma and Agent Elder Plans have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 1910 Turkey Point Road and Greens Corners. And planning, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The information report was previously brought forward on November 3rd. The application was submitted by Mary Elder. The application is for a zoning amendment to change the property from agricultural to hamlet residential. with the special provision to permit a 20-meter road frontage. This application is a conformity exercise to bring the property into conformity with the official plan. And the overall intention of the 20-meter wide road frontage is for that 20-meter wide road frontage to act as the main point of entry for a future plan of subdivision application. For this application, there were a total of 2 letters that were received from members of the public. The letters were addressed in the public hearing, which was previously held on November 3rd. Since the public hearing, there have been no new letters or comments that have been received. The next step in the process in relation to this property is for the owner to apply for a draft plan of subdivision. The draft plan of subdivision process is a public process, so that will provide the public with another opportunity to provide any comments or raise any questions or concerns that they may have, and they can be raised at that time. Staff are recommending approval for this zoning application. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from councilors? All right. If I could have a motion that staff's recommendation that the application be approved for the reasons set out in report PD 20-69, and that public input has been received for this application and was considered as part of the decision. Councillor Van Pasten, seconded by Councillor Columbus. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Next is staff report. PD 20-71, that's an application that has been received to approve a site-specific official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to replace a 2-story single detached house with garage with a 2-story single detached house with an attached garage in a hazard land zone. Tom and Lisa Leach and Agent Civic Planning Solutions have put forth the application affecting the lands described as part lots 9 to 11, Plan 230 in the urban area of Port Dover, Norfolk County. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. To Madam Chair, to the Council, this report PD 2071 is being presented to the Council with recommendation. The application is to approve a replacement dwelling on hazard land, and this will require a site-specific official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. The initial information report was presented to the Council on November 3rd, 2020. The Council resolution in that public hearing indicated that the Council will not endorse the provincial requirement for an archaeological assessment and a species at risk screening on the basis that the property is within an urban area that has already been previously developed. After the public hearing, the Council staff communicated with the Ministry of Heritage, Sports, Tourism and Culture Industries with a request for further review. We received the Ministry's updated comments, which remain similar to their initial comments, that an archaeological assessment is warranted because of its proximity to water courses and strategic location and height of the land above Lake Erie. Through Madam Chair, planning staff has also further reviewed the drawings and documents and believes that an archaeological assessment is not a reasonable requirement for the following reasons. The replacement building proposal is located in an urban area with a history of continuous redevelopment and transformation. The proposed building footprint will be located on the already disturbed and excavated area. The subject site is not even located within 1.3 kilometers of the closest archaeological site. Generally, an archaeological assessment is triggered when there is an archaeological site within 300 meters of the site. Numerous residential dwellings along the lakeshore area in Port Dover have already been replaced, rebuilt, and redeveloped, and they have not been required an archaeological assessment unless within 300 meters to an archaeological site. So, Madam Chair, the planning staff has also reviewed the adjacent woodland strip to assess potential impact on any endangered species or significant wildlife habitats. Based on the available data, there is no evidence of NHIC, plant community, or wildlife concentration in the adjacent woodland strip. Given that the existing setback is maintained, it is planning staff's opinion that a species at risk screening is not required for this development. So, Madam Chair, in planning staff's opinion, the proposed development conforms to the goals and objectives of the official plan and consistent with the previous policies. Therefore, the report PD 2071 is being presented to the Council with recommendations that the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment be approved for the reasons stated in the report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Any questions from Council? Councillor Van Pasten.
Not a question, a comment. I commend staff for recommending that there is no need for archaeological studies and species at risk studies on this particular property. I sort of like it when people make recommendations that make sense. So thank you very much for pointing out that there's no need for those things.
Thanks, Councillor Van Passen. I completely agree. Anything further from staff or from council? Okay, motion to, I see Councillor Martin has seconded it, just need a mover, that the application be approved for the reasons set out in report PD 20-71, and that all public input has been received for this application be considered as part of the decision. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next, staff report PD 20-72, a housekeeping amendment to the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014 is meant to amend the home industry definition, amend the home occupation definition, amend provision under decks and porches, amend provision under number of parking spaces, amend provision under accessory residential dwelling unit, amend formatting under sections 2.93.1, 2.93.2, 6.3.6, and add provision under exemptions from yard provisions. Is there a presentation on this, Brandon?
Briefly, we have Gurang, one of our planners here, for a quick introduction to the item.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, this is a housekeeping amendment to the Norfolk County zoning bylaw. The purpose is to address some minor outstanding housekeeping items to make the interpretation more clear and add a provision to include air conditioner units from being exempt from yard provisions in the side yard. A mapping change, which was previously brought forward at the public hearing, is not a part of the amendments in this report. Staff will bring this mapping change for consideration at a later point. The proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw will add clarity to the implementation of some existing zoning provisions. And it is staff's recommendation that this application to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw be approved for reasons set out in report number PD 2072. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Question from councillors. Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mohammed. I just want to commend staff on this point as well for cleaning up some of the language and the terminology and sort of cleaning up the details of some of these particular items. So very good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michele. Does that mean you'd like to move the motion?
I would, Madam Mayor.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Huffman. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Next is staff report PD-77 regarding the extension of the Port Dover interim control bylaw 2019-89.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report was prepared in collaboration with Public Works as well as the county solicitor, and is seeking approval for the extension of the Port Dover interim control bylaw, which is set to expire on January 18th of 2021. The purpose of the extension is to allow time for council to consider the interurban water supply report, which is coming in the new year, and also for staff to complete and implement the Port Dover secondary plan. As council may recall, in September of last year, the interim control bylaw was adopted for the Port Dover area, and that was made and done to allow for the start of the secondary plan and to complete this interurban water supply work, which was already underway when the bylaw went into effect. So at this time, the secondary plan can't progress until there is clarity around the servicing capacity. And once that is known, the project can then be completed. So staff are proposing that the interim control bylaw be extended to October 2021. And this is to allow for sufficient time to consider and complete the interurban water supply report, and then for the completion of the secondary plan, which would then be implemented through an official plan amendment. So we also need time for that, the statutory engagement process, and to really allow for appropriate time for overall engagement prior to the implementation of the official plan amendment. So that is the report, and I can answer any questions as council might have.
Thanks, Tricia. Any questions from council?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Question for probably Mr. Burgess. He can answer fairly quickly. I've had a lot of questions from the community concerning the date, the expiry date, when it started, and just inconsistency with the date changes. Are you able to just use this report as an opportunity to share with the public why there's a bit of an extension on this prior to approving it due to COVID?
Sure, we can certainly put that out through comms. Extension. Yep. Yeah, we can put it out through comms. Yep.
Thank you. My second question is concerning also actually another comment that I'm wondering if you can make. The interim control bylaw and the correlation with capacity directly, would you be able to take advantage again of the report coming forward right now and make a comment about how staff in the Public Works Department are really separating the issue from the water perspective, whereas if the interim control bylaw for some reason was not extended, that doesn't mean that staff would then be granting capacity from a water perspective.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor and to council. That's correct. It's not Public Works. It's the chief building officer. He is not issuing building permits due to health and safety reasons, and it's not related to the secondary plan. So, so it's not even Public Works. It's the CBO who has that authority.
But thanks for the clarification. I get that question a lot, and I think that this is probably a good opportunity while the report's in front of us to just address that. Regardless of an extension here, that the water issue is still treated separately and capacity is looked at from the staff perspective. It's not tied to this bylaw.
Any further questions? Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been looking for an excuse to bring this up over the last couple of weeks, but read through the draft report for the interurban water supply and all those situations. We can't do anything in Port Dover because there's a lack of water supply. But I noticed on the mapping that was provided in that draft report that there's a 30-inch water line 6 kilometers up the road in Haldeman. It's goes along St. John's Road. Are they looking at the possibility of speaking to the province of Ontario and just burying a pipe along down Highway 6 to keep the water tower in Dover full, which would solve the immediate problem of a lack of capacity? Haldeman has the capacity to supply that, and if the province were to waive the need for environmental studies, because you're burying a water pipe in a ditch, I can't see where you'd do a lot of environmental damage to an existing road ditch, and that could solve the immediate problem and have it done in 6 months if you push the envelope on it, and at least then we could start issuing building permits back in Dover, because all the options to fix the overall problem, we're looking at 5 to 10 years, and you know, we've got, I do believe it's 1,200 houses on hold in Dover because of the lack of water. So the quicker we could fix that immediate problem, the quicker they could build some houses, and if each one of those houses generates, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year in taxes, it, you know, it's easy to scoop an extra million. But is that one of the options that staff are looking at to, as an interim solution?
I think that is very much the exact pipe that they are looking to connect to, but I think it's somewhat more complicated than just saying we're going to bury a pipe and have it done in 6 months, which is you're not able to get.
That would be the point, that if that's one of the options, we would send the mayor to go talk directly to a minister, and a minister's order can overrule all those little petty details.
The mayor and the then deputy mayor both did speak to the minister, and there wasn't, and did try to convey the critical nature of the situation down here. And we have had several meetings, in fact, on the same subject matter with the minister or her delegate, but at the last meeting it would have been Roma, I guess last year, was when we had the biggest meeting that took place over it, and there wasn't much of an appetite at that point in time to be waiving permits, but that is certainly the direction that we need to keep pushing, but maybe staff has some further comments.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the councillor. I'll just add two small points. One is, even if the pipeline was approved, it's the amount of capacity that Haldeman currently has to be able to sell to Norfolk would not be sufficient to meet those needs, though it would take some pressure off. It wouldn't alleviate the full lift. There is a requirement for an expansion of the Haldeman plant to do that. We are looking at multi-streaming any project once council approves the direction, which will come hopefully in January. Once council approves the direction, we would consider, for example, putting pipeline in prior to expansion of the Haldeman plant. You know, there's other infrastructures that's required. There needs to be a metering room or some other thing so that Haldeman can charge us for the water that's coming across. I would also say the second point that I would make is that the CAO's office here has advanced some government relations activity to ensure that once a decision is made, we can hit the ground running with the provincial and federal governments for the appropriate approvals to streamline the process as best we can.
Yet again, we need some help from Mr. Barrett, so you have the best connection to him. Perhaps you can relay these concerns and these suggestions, because we've tried. Anything further from anyone in council? Does anybody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Rabbits, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. The next item, I guess, is the addition, Jason, I think that's your report, 20-36, facility rentals.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, this was an issue that was raised by Councillor Huffman last week, and we wanted to report back to council on this, and I do apologize for the title not being the best title on the report. It should read concerns regarding the out-of-health unit facility rentals, particular our community service rentals. Staff have reviewed the situation. We've reviewed what other organizations are doing or other communities are doing. Staff is now taking the position that we will not, for the next period of time, undertake any third-party rentals. We believe that is the best way to accomplish the goals of ensuring that people from other health zones that are in have higher restrictions than ours cannot rent our public facilities. We'll, like anything else we do during COVID, we'll continue to reevaluate that position, on a semi-regular basis. But we just wanted to update council on that issue. I do, if council gives me some liberty, I just do want to say a few things. This is not directed to council, but over the last number of weeks, there have been a number of issues at the arenas, and my staff have taken, some considerable flack. Thank you, Councillor Huffman, for trying to give me a politically correct term to use in public debate. And I just want to address that. Staff are not perfect. Staff work real hard to do their best. Staff appreciate constructive criticism. I think the concern that we have is some of the criticism is being it's not constructive, it's destructive criticism. If I take this example, Councillor Huffman raised the issue. Staff went away and within a week can report back on exactly what's going on. There was a misunderstanding of the original facts of the situation. I believe Councillor Martin had pointed out during the debate last week that there may have been some health unit children playing with their uniforms, which happened to be from out of town. Didn't mean that they were from out of town. The person who rented the facility was a member of the health unit. And then there was some also allegations that, that other leagues weren't given this time, and it's quite clear that the scheduler that Norfolk has did clearly try to sell this additional ice to all the internal user groups first before putting it out for public consumption. So I just do want to say that, like I said, this matter was, I thought, approached correctly by council. They raised the concern. Staff had time to go get actual facts and deliver it back to council. We can't clean up every misconception out there in the public. If we did, I'd spend my whole time, my whole job correcting that. But what I do want to say is there are a couple of things that are going on, just so council is aware of it. We are having problems in some limited circumstances with enforcing the rules, that we have put in place. I never thought I would have had to write a letter to, grown men saying, please follow the instructions of arena staff. Please don't spit, on the benches during a global pandemic. We were in discussions last week at EOC of whether we should be hiring private security to enforce the provincial mandates of only 50 people in the arena, because we have arena staff being pushed aside or ignored when the limits are coming due. So it's not, staff are trying to do their best, to be quite frank. We do have concerns with it. If there are concerns, like I said, we'd like to handle it in a positive manner, address the concerns and move forward. If we can do it in a constructive manner versus the destructive manner that, seems to have happened over the last few weeks. There was another incident on the weekend, with regards to somebody renting a bus. The blood services, Canadian Blood Services, rented a bus, just happened to have, with great luck, Hamilton Bulldogs logos on the side of it. And then there's a flurry of activity, but it's a private rental that of a bus that you can't control. They were down here doing community good. There was no ill intention. But again, my staff gets distracted for, half a day dealing with rumors, innuendo, and, flack or insults or whatever. So I think we're moving forward. I thank council for that digression off the report, but I think it's important for council to understand that staff are taking some heat for this, and I just want to publicly acknowledge the staff in the arenas for putting up with some of the stuff. It's unfortunate that they have to, but I think Norfolk County should be very proud, frankly, of what we've executed at the arenas. We're only losing 60 hours system-wide per week, frankly, for COVID cleaning. We're turning around the ice very quickly. Part of that had to do with the additional staff that council hired. As I said, we're very proud of the fact we're one of the few communities to offer summer ice. My personal opinion is I think we're knocking it out of the park. There's always room for improvement, but at some point in time, I'd just like to say thank you publicly to the staff for executing in this area. If there's any questions on the report itself, I'd be happy to take those questions.
Thanks very much, Jason. I appreciate those comments. Again, I think if the public has concerns, there's a way to go about it and to send a respectful email. And as was the case with the bus, it was all over social media all weekend, and it was because, like Jason said, the blood services clinic, their bus broke down actually on the way to do the clinic, and they called a charter company, and that just happened to be the bus that was sent to them. So, it's a flurry of activity on social media that is not doing any good for the community. Councillor Huffman, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Mr. Burgess, I just wanted to also say that thank you very much for the diligence in getting this back to us. I appreciate the hard work that you and the staff have done. I do appreciate how we've handled this, and piggybacking on Mayor Chop's comments, in the future, I would encourage community members if you do have a concern, to please reach out to your counselor in a professional manner so that these issues can be dealt with properly and efficiently without the flurry of activity on social media that causes a lot of dismay to a lot of people. So a big thanks to everyone who dealt with this, and I know that we weren't encouraging zone hopping, and hopefully this will put an end to it, and going forward, all is good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hoffman. Anything further? Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We spent half the summer and fall being told that there's not enough ice available and there's just no way to make it work. But how many hours of free ice have we got out there that there's even a need to rent it out? So,
I know, who could have ever imagined that we would have supplementary ice time, that we would be arguing about who was renting the facilities? Jason, go ahead.
Through the chair, it is a point of irony, as you know, I've been called bumbling Burgess and spreadsheet Burgess or whatever. I will get the exact information. We do have surplus ice time on weekends, which is prime time, and I'll get that information to you. That we weren't able to calculate it for the purposes of the report as far as the total potential losses we would have. What we are going to do, though, and what we have done, quite frankly, as staff, is everyone crossing their fingers that we don't go into red, but if we're maintain it, we are adding more programming and for general public programming, so general skates, pucks and sticks and that kind of stuff, to give more opportunities for community members to enjoy the arenas. So we're trying to fill up that space, but the irony is not lost on me, Councillor Van Passen, that for all the heartburn with regards to not having enough ice time, we are debating about selling surplus ice time.
Any further comments from councillors? Okay, so if I could have a mover and a seconder, that report CAO 20-36, respecting concerns regarding facility rentals, be received as information. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. All right, so the first bylaw that was pulled, we'll deal with that. That's bylaw 2020-96. It's being a bylaw to adopt the emergency management program in Norfolk County Emergency Response Plan. Councillor Michelli, I'll let you speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple of questions about part of the report. First of all, I think it's a very extensive and comprehensive plan that's been put in place by staff. I just have a couple of questions I'd like to put to them, though. It is in the report, page 5 of the report, and I believe that's page 219 of our agenda package. There's a list of definition and relevant terms. And it's been brought to my attention that I believe that because of the geography of Norfolk County, with regard to local health, the local health integration networks, we are actually served by 2 of them. There is the one that is at the bottom of that page 5 of the report, the Hamilton, Niagara, Haldeman, Brant Local Health Integration Network, which provides, obviously, funding and local care in the event of an emergency. But it is my understanding, and I certainly would stand corrected by staff if this is not true, that because of our geography, we're actually served by 2 of those local health integrated networks. In addition, the western part of Norfolk County, from basically west of Delhi and St. Williams, and including Port Rowan, are served actually by the Southwest London local health integrated network. And I'm just wondering if there's a reason why we have not included them in this plan. And I guess further to that, I'm always kind of, I noticed that one of the key element, of course, in this, is should there be an emergency and we require assistance by the local health integration network, they also fund some of the activities during an emergency. So I'm just wondering if staff can comment on whether or not that is simply an omission, or if there's some specific reason why we have not included that other LHIN. Thank you.
Through the chair to the councillor, he is correct with regards to Southwest. I'll get back to the councillor if there was a specific reason. My guess, though, is it's probably an oversight. As you can tell by on page 216, page 2 of the report, you can see that we take updates every time and we track them, so we can put the next round of updates together and put that through to add the appropriate LINs in there.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, if I could have a mover and seconder that bylaw 2020-96 be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, fixed with the corporate seal. Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. Next, I need a mover and a seconder that bylaws 2020-97, bylaw 2020-99, to bylaw 2020-105 inclusive, bylaw 6OP 2020 to bylaw 8OP 2020 inclusive, and bylaw 23Z 2020 to bylaw 28Z 2020 inclusive be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? That's carried. And looks like we're moving into closed session. I have a motion that's been moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Taylor. That council, actually, you know what, before we do that, are there any general announcements? And then our media can go home. And any general, Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
As I believe this is the last meeting before the new year, I just want to say happy holidays to everybody and wish everyone a happy, safe holiday season. Also, did we have a mover on the bylaws there? No, I think we're going to move her on that.
Okay, sorry, I guess back to the bylaws then. I'll just mover and a seconder, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Rabbits. We already voted, all in favor. Anybody else? Councillor Michele, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like during this time to ask Mr. Godby if he would mind giving us an update on the progress of the Causeway Bridge.
I think we got rid of the through the chair to council. Essentially, what we're looking at is we talked about last week a little bit the some of the work that was being done at out at the Causeway. There was some additional bridge inspections that were done by our consulting engineer, the structural engineers for that. They had expressed some concern with some of the deterioration of the rig matting that is currently in place there. And as a result, we did get out there and have some more repairs done to that structure, to the rig matting itself, as well as they did a full under deck inspection as well. So that is one of the reasons why through that some of the recommendations came out of implementing the speed reduction across the Causeway Bridge and the installation of those speed bumps essentially to assist with compliance of the speed reduction. Those speed bumps that have been installed right now are more the smaller style. We will be going to a larger, more aggressive speed bump earlier in the new year once we have the full product in inventory and ready to be installed. So the other thing that we have done there is increased our frequency of inspections. on that structure. I mean, the original rig matting repair that was completed on the structure was intended to be a shorter term fix. As you're aware, we've had a number of delays on this project. So that's one of the reasons why we've increased our frequency of inspections, just to make sure that this structure is still in a safe and passable condition for everyone needing to get in and out of the causeway. And the repair work that we have done to date is still been fully designed and inspected by our structural engineers for that bridge. And they are currently confident that with the work that has been done, that, you know, we can continue to keep this structure in operation until we get to the point that it can be replaced. Further to that, we are just looking at if they do notice any other areas of concern that begin to develop on this structure. The plan of action going forward would be to first look at implementation of load limits, as well as potentially taking it down to one lane, just to help go along with the load limiting factors, so that we're not having heavy trucks or vehicles or trailers or that coming in and out, as well as coming at a high speed, which can really do some hammering on the structure. So we have not had to get to that point yet, but these are the kind of things that we're watching for, and we're hopeful that progress on getting the permits in place and getting the construction started will happen early in the spring, and that we'll be able to just continue with the existing speed reduction and speed bumps until such a time that the structure is replaced.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Shelley.
Thank you very much, Jason. And so, Jason, could you just give us a summing up comment about the overall safety of that bridge at this current time?
Yes, through the chair. I guess essentially the structural engineers that we have monitoring this bridge currently do not have concerns with regards to the safety or the passability of this bridge. It's more the fact that we are just continuing to monitor it to ensure that we don't run into any unforeseen problems.
Thank you very much, Jason. I'm sure that would be very comforting to the people in Long Point who use that bridge every day. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything further? Councillor Clemens, go ahead.
I too just wanted to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season, and may Santa bring us a new clock for the council chambers that's in bad need of replacement, and may the year 2021 be less memorable than the year 2020. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. If Mr. Godby's still there, I didn't realize he was on the line. I too would like to call on him for a very brief Meisner Dam update. It appears as though construction has stopped.
Through the chair to Councillor Martin, I guess I honestly don't have a full update. I know they're projecting on that completion of all the works there for the year may happen over the last week or so. But what I can do is get in touch with the project manager there just to confirm where exactly that project stands. And at that point, it would also be something we could work with our comms team on to get the message out there, and, you know, kind of celebrate the fact that we've got the project wrapped up.
Thanks.
Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to everyone, again, to echo some of the sentiments of my fellow colleagues, I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season in whichever holiday you may be celebrating. On a serious note, I would like to encourage everyone to please, please, please follow the directions of our medical officer of health in our area and also the provincial guidelines. We are currently in orange. Our numbers have been continuing to rise. I know it is tempting for everyone to want to get together for Christmas. And please do the right thing and follow the guidelines so that we can all get together next Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Huffman. You took the words right out of my mouth, actually. So anything further from councillors? Councillor Rabbit?
Since we're going around the table, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and a happy holiday season. Concur with my colleagues that it's time to stay within your household unit, celebrate with close family, and try to refrain from traveling. I think it's meant to be a Christmas with our closest of kin.
Councillor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to wish everybody a great holiday. With regard to Councillor Columbus' comment that we need a new clock, I would like to mention, though, it is right twice a day. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, any notices of motions or to be put forward? No? All right, seeing none. Motion's been moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Taylor that council move into closed session at 4:34 p.m. to address the three items on the agenda pursuant to sections 239, 2B, D, and F of the Municipal Act, as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about identifiable individuals, labor relations, or employee negotiations, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, all set? Just a mover to move into open session at 5:09 PM. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That's carried. So the first item will be to appoint that report PD-2070 Advisory Committee appointments for the Norfolk Heritage Committee be received as information that Barb Boyko be appointed for a term effective immediately until November 30th, 2022, and further that Paul Herwinen be appointed for a term effective immediately until November 30th, 2022. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Michele. All those in favor? That's carried, and a big thank you to all of the other applicants. And the second matter is that staff report CAO 20-30 respecting COVID-19 compensation matters be received as information, or rather be deferred to the next council and committee meeting, and that the related correspondence from Haldeman County be received as information. A mover and a seconder for the deferral, Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Next is that the memo from the county solicitor respecting facility usage be received as information. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Taylor, that bylaw 2020-106 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this council meeting held on the 16th day of December 2020 be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? December, it's not the 16th, it is the 15th? December 15th. I guess maybe they were thinking we were going to go till 1 in the morning again. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. And finally, that council be adjourned at 5:11 PM. Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? And that's carried. Merry Christmas, everyone.